Hello everyone, welcome to A Clear Perspective. I'm Soren Li. China has become Apple's second largest market after the United States. According to Tech Media The Information's report on Tuesday, December 7th, Apple CEO Tim Cook signed a 5-year agreement with CCP officials 5 years ago, estimated at about $275 billion, to resolve the potential surveillance and regulation issues in China. The CCP believed at that time that Apple was not contributing enough to its local economy. As a result of the authorities' pressure and propaganda, the sales of iPhone in China plummeted and Apple was facing a series of regulation issues. In 2016, Cook visited China 3 times and signed a $275 billion agreement with the National Development and Reform Commission of the CCP. In the agreement, Cook promised that some of Apple's investment in China would help Chinese suppliers develop the most advanced production technologies, support the development of high-quality intellectuals, use more Chinese-made parts, collaborate with universities on research, invest directly in Chinese technology companies, and assist several Chinese state-owned enterprises. Obviously, what the CCP wants is Apple's technology. Apple is selling its technology in exchange for huge commercial gains in China. In May 2016, Cook announced that Apple would invest $1 billion in the Chinese version of Uber, Didi Chuxing technology company, to appease the CCP. Upon the agreement, the deal will be automatically extended for 1 more year until May 2022 if the two parties have no objections. Apple's business in China has been booming in recent years. The iPhone has become the best-selling cell phone in China. For the first time in 6 years, China has become Apple's second largest market after the US. According to Apple's financial report, in the fiscal year 2021, revenue from the Greater China area reached a record high of $68.3 billion, about 1/5 of Apple's annual revenue. It is believed that the blending and the transfer of benefits between Apple and the CCP are far more than what is mentioned in the agreement, because the CCP is best at black box operation, and what we see on the table is only the tip of the iceberg. What really worries us is the shady activities behind the scenes. The report revealed that since Apple had to comply with Chinese laws, its apps must undergo more rigorous scrutiny. Its new privacy features won't be available to Chinese users due to regulatory reasons. Apple's compromise to maintain the Chinese market was met with strong criticism in America. What Apple had to go through is also a lesson for other foreign companies entering China. Tesla also faces challenges from the Chinese authorities on multiple fronts, similar to what Apple faced in 2016. Foreign companies who decide to collaborate with the CCP would only benefit in the short term with many behind-the-scenes activities, but it would not end well in the long run. If Apple continues to align itself with the CCP, it will eventually be hurt. The CCP usually first lets the investors accumulate their wealth first, then steals their technology and rips them off. Especially right now, the CCP is stressed out from both domestic and foreign crises. The US-China relationship continues to deteriorate, and it seems like another Cold War is on its way. The CCP tried hard to set itself up as equal to the United States. It also viewed China and the US as joint rulers of the world. The CCP believes that this second Cold War is a political showdown between the two superpowers dominating the world order. Additionally, they believe that the East will rise while the West will decline, so they could challenge the US and bring it down. But the CCP hasn't recognized that its north neighbor doesn't share this vision. That is Russia. The CCP would have to fight for global dominance against America and Russia. Even though the CCP has always laughed at Russia because its GDP is only equivalent to China's Guangdong province. The CCP just regarded Russia as a second-tier power. However, Russia has been quietly striving to be the third power of the world. Let's take a closer look and analyze Russia's role during this time of turbulence. On December 6, Russia President Putin led a high-level delegation to India. According to the official statement, Putin's visit aimed at boosting military and energy ties with India. India and Russia are traditional allies. The two countries have maintained close relations since the Cold War. This time, Putin and Modi signed 28 agreements for a series of advanced military equipment expos, including the S-400 missile system. More importantly, Indian-Russia military cooperation includes the Reciprocal Logistic Exchange Agreement, which allows the partnering countries to use each other's military bases and logistical support facilities. This means that India and Russia have actually become military allies. It is obvious that the arms exported to India from Russia aimed at the Chinese Communist Party. For example, China purchased the S-400 missile system 4 years earlier than India, but India got it first. Indian media reported that the Indian military might deploy the S-400 system at the Sino-Indian border as early as next year. The most direct result of the India-Russia military alliance is that India's military force will have significant progress. Russia is fully arming a stronger India to fight against the CCP. Just 1 year ago, in October 2020, India and the US signed the Basic Exchange and Cooperation Agreement, meaning the two countries had become factual military allies. All of these aimed at the Chinese Communist Party. Let's go back to Russia. A few days ago, Washington Post exposed a US intelligence document warning that Russia is planning massive military offensive against Ukraine involving 175,000 troops. It was reported that the Russian military was gathered in 4 locations with tanks and artillery. This suddenly made the US and Europe nervous. US, UK, Germany, France, and Italy quickly made collective promises to defend Ukrainian sovereignty. Biden also made a 2-hour video call with Putin on December 7th. According to media reports, Biden warned Putin that if Russia invaded Ukraine, it would face very severe economic sanctions. These sanctions will include cutting off Russia's connection to the global financial payment system, SWIFT, and shutting down the recently completed Nord Stream 2 gas pipeline. Putin said that he will not attack Ukraine. He said that he was only responding to Ukraine's provocations and asked for assurance that NATO will not expand eastward and will stop deploying offensive weapons near Russia. Later on, U.S. National Security Advisor Sullivan confirmed to the media that there are a lot of compromises on both sides. I have to say that Putin is indeed a master of diplomacy. As early as April of this year, to prevent NATO from expanding to the east and accepting Ukraine, Putin had a large-scale military deployment near the eastern border of Ukraine. And it's worth noting that Putin always makes his moves when the relationship between China and the US is escalating and deteriorating. Why is that? We saw that Biden quickly took the initiative to communicate directly with Putin on both occasions. The previous one was a face-to-face summit, and this time it was a video conference. We can say that when Xi Jinping attracted the U.S. attention, Putin took advantage of this opportunity to deploy troops to force the U.S. to stop NATO from expanding to the east. Back then, North Korea's Kim Jong-un used the same tactic to launch missiles frequently. This was the reason why North Korea, a poor little country, became the center of the world's attention, and the heads of the US, China, and Russia lined up to meet with Kim Jong-un. In fact, Putin and Kim Jong-un played the same political game. By frequently deploying troops, Putin only needs to spend a little money to get US attention and talk to Biden. Then he can bring up his conditions face to face with Biden. While moving west, Putin has not forgotten to move south. He armed India and clamped down on the CCP. In addition, Putin has also stepped into the South China Sea. A week ago, the media reported that the CCP and Indonesia had a territorial dispute in the South China Sea. This dispute has been going on for 4 months. At one point, the Chinese Communist Party sent 4 warships to the region, while Indonesia held joint military exercises with the United States. The key point is that the area called Tuna Block, where the Indonesian oil drilling platform is located, is within the 9-dash line drawn by the CCP. And half of this Tuna Block is owned by the Russian state-owned overseas oil company. It is very subtle that the area where Russia is cooperating with Vietnam to extract oil is also located within the 9-dash line. This area is only 108 kilometers away from the Tuna Block. The Russian overseas oil company owns both areas. So Putin's move in India, Vietnam, Indonesia, and his public statement on Taiwan that China does not need to use force actually outlines Putin's own version of an Indo-Pacific strategy. The core of this version is to distract the CCP, increase Russia's influence in the Indo-Pacific region, and prevent the CCP from occupying the South China Sea. The CCP clearly does not dare to take any action against Russia. Other ASEAN countries might need to consider whether they should cooperate with Russia to extract oil and gas resources in the disputed areas. In this way, the status quo will be maintained, which serves no interest to the CCP. The CCP has tried to change the status quo and expand its territory for many years. In other words, the problem of maintaining the status quo, which the United States has been trying to solve with its aircraft carriers, has been solved quietly by Putin with signing just 2 drilling platform contracts. And Putin's actions don't end there. He announced that he will attend the Winter Olympics in Beijing next year, becoming the only leader of a major country to announce its attendance to show due respect to Xi Jinping. This makes Xi unable to really say or do anything, even though he was embarrassed 3 times by Putin. He would have to welcome Putin with a smile instead. I have no doubt that when Putin arrives in Beijing for the Winter Olympics next year, the CCP media will be emphasizing the theme of so-called not allies but better than allies in the Sino-Russian relationship. Putin has struck a very good balance and has achieved his goal. Russia has quietly become another important role that cannot be ignored. Putin not only gained the ability to have a conversation with Biden or Xi Jinping whenever he wants to, but also obtained the actual economic interests and influence in the Indo-Pacific region. Well, that's all for today. Thank you for watching. I hope to see you next time.